Charles Marino, a former DHS advisor and former Secret Service agent, joining me now to talk about this. This really was, a wild scene. Your thoughts on if these Democratic lawmakers will face repercussions?
Good afternoon, Molly. Well, look at all the threats that ICE operations and the men and women of ICE and other federal agencies are facing currently. You've got violent criminals that they're going after that have been let into the country from the cartels, from the gangs, other violent criminals from around the globe, and national security threats. And then you have the inept policies of Democrat-run cities that also create very dangerous conditions for these agents. You've got policies in place that fly in the face of common sense when it comes to keeping the American people safe, never mind the communities that they live in and the country, and also prevent state and local law enforcement from working alongside them during these operations. And now, on top of all of these existing threats, we now have public officials at the federal, state, and local level that are becoming not only obstructionists to ICE operations, but also assaulting federal agents. That's the red line. I think that's what Hakeem Jeffries meant to say. The red line is assaulting the men and women of law enforcement who we know the Democratic Party have turned their backs on for the past 5 years.
I want to get to this. This is the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem speaking about what she thinks about what she saw.
We had members of Congress assaulting law enforcement officers. They were cooperating with criminals to create criminal acts, and then they're saying that they were providing oversight. This wasn't oversight. This was committing felonies.
You know, when I say what she saw, we can all look at these videos. Yeah. Your thoughts on what she said?
Well, if you look at the position of the members of Congress that did this, they weren't concerned with the conditions of the detention center. They totally disagree with the policies of the Trump administration. They don't believe that we should be enforcing the laws of this country. They don't believe that we should have secure borders. They don't believe that the homeland should be protected. That's their true position, and they're going to continue to be obstructionists. Now, whether or not they get charged federally with assaulting these agents, that's a different story, and that's up to DOJ right now and Pam Bondi. But at a minimum, there needs to be some action taken by Republicans and the Speaker of the House to strip them of their committee assignments and sanction them.
Yeah, and this is an ICE facility. The Department of Homeland Security, the information we have about the alleged offenders held inside are very serious crimes. But we're seeing a few instances across America where people, community members, just people seeing ICE on their streets are interfering with ICE actions. They're stepping in between ICE and whatever the person or objective is. What sort of a message do you think watching congressional leaders behave in this manner sends to people that live in communities across America?
Yeah, it creates a free-for-all. It gives permission to these, in many cases, violent actors who are attempting to disrupt ICE operations and place them in great danger by tipping off these violent criminals. It gives them a free pass. And we know that sanctuary cities are not going to hold these people accountable. And the actions of members of Congress or local mayors, whoever it may be, this gives a free pass to all of those people. So, you know, look, we've got to give the support to the men and women of ICE. All the other federal agencies are pitching in to help solve this immigration mess that was created by the Biden administration. These are very real threats. And the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of DOJ need to stand behind these agents so that they can safely do their jobs each and every day to protect the country.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see a swath of Democratic leaders, Democratic leadership coming and essentially backing these congressional leaders, their actions there at the ICE facility in New Jersey. What do you make of that?
Well, who do these leaders support? It seems like they're going to the mat for the most violent of these violent criminals. Where are their concerns about the victims that we've seen because of these inept policies by Democrats that have created these very dangerous conditions here in the United States? You have had people killed. You've had people assaulted. I mean, the list goes on and on. But yet these congressional leaders on the Democratic side don't seem to care about the American public, the people that put them into office. If I'm one of their constituents, this is very concerning to me. These people should not be reelected into office if they're willing to put their voice and their actions behind these violent criminals that shouldn't be in the country in the first place.
Yeah, some of those districts are very solidly blue. Charles Marino, thank you very much.
Yes.
We appreciate your insight this Saturday. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.